1. Introduction to the Jesus Edit concept. The Jesus Edit is more than just a remix or reinterpretation. It's a conceptual reimagining of Depeche Mode's iconic track Personal Jesus. While the original song already touches on themes of faith, connection, and spiritual longing, the Jesus Edit seeks to deepen and contextualize those themes through both sound and storytelling. This version of Personal Jesus is not simply a modern update. It's a narrative experience that invites the viewer to engage emotionally and reflectively with the music. The concept begins with a question. What does it mean to have a personal Jesus in today's world? In a time marked by disconnection, digital overload, and existential anxiety, the idea of someone, real or divine, who can truly be there for us takes on renewed significance. The Jesus Edit explores this by presenting the song not only as a musical experience but as a spiritual encounter. Through the use of cinematic visuals, atmospheric sounds, and a carefully constructed arc, the Jesus Edit creates a space where the song's core message, reach out and touch faith, resonates on a deeper level. The edit doesn't preach or impose a specific religious view. Instead, it opens a door to personal interpretation, allowing each listener to define what their personal Jesus might look like. For some, it may be a higher power. For others, it might be a friend, a loved one, or even a moment of self-realization. The Jesus Edit also pays homage to the legacy of Depeche Mode, whose music has always walked the line between the sacred and the secular. By enhancing the emotional and thematic layers of Personal Jesus, this edit honors the original while offering something new, an experience that's not only heard but felt, not only watched but lived. 2. Depeche Mode's legacy and the making of Personal Jesus. Depeche Mode is widely recognized as one of the most influential bands in modern music history, pioneering a unique fusion of electronic, rock, and alternative sounds. Emerging in the early 1980s during the height of the synth-pop era, the band consistently pushed the boundaries of musical expression. Their ability to explore dark, introspective themes while maintaining mass appeal earned them both critical acclaim and a devoted global fan base. By the late 1980s, Depeche Mode had evolved beyond electronic experimentation into something far more complex, blending raw emotional intensity with provocative lyrical content. In this context, Personal Jesus marked a major turning point in their career. Released in 1989 as the lead single from their album Violator, the song represented a bold stylistic shift. Instead of relying primarily on synthesizers, Personal Jesus featured a gritty blues-inspired guitar riff, something rare in their earlier work. Martin Gore, the band's principal songwriter, was inspired by the themes in Priscilla Presley's book Elvis and Me, particularly the idea that Elvis was, in a sense, a personal Jesus to millions. Gore translated that into a broader commentary on idol worship, loneliness, and the human desire for spiritual or emotional guidance. The making of Personal Jesus also reflected the band's commitment to innovation. Produced by Flood and engineered with analog precision, the track was minimalist yet powerful, emphasizing rhythm and repetition. Dave Gahan's commanding vocals brought an urgent edge to the lyrics, delivering lines like, "Someone to hear your prayers, someone who cares," with conviction and ambiguity. The song's tone leaves room for both religious interpretation and a more secular reading, another hallmark of Depeche Mode's nuanced artistry. Over time, Personal Jesus became one of the band's most enduring hits. Covered by artists from Johnny Cash to Marilyn Manson and sampled countless times, its legacy is profound. The song's impact lies in its timelessness. It still feels fresh, relevant, and emotionally resonant. The Jesus Edit builds on this legacy, amplifying the original message and reframing it within a modern context, allowing both longtime fans and new listeners to rediscover its power. 3. The Urban Journey Visual Storyline Breakdown. The visual narrative of the Jesus Edit is set against the backdrop of a modern city, restless, chaotic, and emotionally distant. This urban setting becomes more than just a location. It serves as a symbolic reflection of the inner struggles faced by the protagonist, and by extension, many individuals in contemporary life. Through carefully crafted visuals, the Jesus Edit reinterprets Depeche Mode's Personal Jesus as a story not only about faith, but about the silent desperation that often lies beneath the surface of everyday existence. The journey begins with a young man wandering aimlessly through a bustling cityscape. He is surrounded by people yet profoundly alone. Trains pass by, neon lights flicker, and busy streets pulse with noise, but he moves through it all in a kind of quiet detachment. The imagery conveys isolation, the emotional numbness that can come from disconnection in a digital, oversaturated world. As the opening riff of Personal Jesus begins, subtle changes appear. The protagonist sees fragmented signs of hope: a street musician singing with unexpected soul, a stranger offering a moment of kindness, a child's spontaneous laughter echoing in a tunnel. These are not overtly religious symbols, but they carry emotional and spiritual weight. They represent moments of human connection, glimpses of grace in a world that often feels indifferent. Midway through the video, he stumbles upon a dimly lit subway corridor where the song plays from a battered speaker. The line "Reach out and touch faith" syncs with a pivotal moment. He pauses, breathes, and finally allows himself to feel. It's not a grand transformation but a quiet awakening. The camera lingers as he looks upward, not necessarily toward heaven but toward something beyond himself. It's a turning point where isolation begins to give way to awareness, even belief. The urban journey in the Jesus Edit isn't about religious conversion. It's about recognizing the need for something more. Whether that's faith, love, forgiveness, or simply hope, the city becomes a landscape for spiritual searching. Through this visual storytelling, the Jesus Edit brings new life to Depeche Mode's Personal Jesus, turning a song into a personal and universal pilgrimage. For symbolism in the lyrics, "Reach out and touch faith." The lyric "Reach out and touch faith" is the emotional and thematic heart of Depeche Mode's Personal Jesus. It's a simple line, yet rich with ambiguity and symbolic power. In the context of the Jesus Edit, this phrase becomes even more significant, acting as both a literal invitation and a metaphorical challenge, asking the listener to break through emotional distance and make a vulnerable, intentional move toward something meaningful. At its core, the line speaks to human longing. To reach out suggests action, effort, and vulnerability. It's the moment when someone dares to break out of isolation and take a step toward connection, whether with another person, with themselves, or with something greater. In a world often defined by detachment and noise, this line reminds us that faith, whether spiritual or emotional, requires intentionality. You must reach for it. But what does touch faith mean? This is where the symbolic layers deepen. Faith in this context is not confined to religion. It can represent belief in love, in human goodness, in redemption, or in one's own ability to change. To touch faith is to come into contact with something intangible but deeply real. It's not about possessing certainty but about making contact with possibility, grasping for hope in the midst of despair, light in the middle of darkness. The Jesus Edit uses visual storytelling to enhance this symbolism. In one key scene, the protagonist moves his hand toward the edge of a subway wall, mirroring the gesture of reaching out. That wall, stained and cracked, isn't sacred in any traditional sense, but it becomes a place of transformation. The physical act of reaching out serves as a metaphor for seeking connection in an impersonal world. In the original and in this reinterpretation, "Reach out and touch faith" is not a command, it's a call. It invites viewers to step beyond apathy, to risk vulnerability, and to find meaning in a world that often feels hollow. Whether that faith is found in God, in another person, or within, the lyric's power lies in its universality. The Jesus Edit leans into this symbolism, reframing it for a new generation navigating its own spiritual and emotional wilderness. 5. Audio remix elements and emotional tone. The Jesus Edit of Depeche Mode's Personal Jesus is not merely a remix. It is a sonic reconstruction that aims to amplify the song's emotional core while preserving its iconic structure. The original track, known for its gritty guitar riff, minimalist production, and haunting vocal delivery, is transformed in this edit to evoke a more introspective and cinematic experience. Every audio choice in the remix is designed to enhance the emotional tone and draw the listener into a deeper, more personal space. The edit begins by isolating the core elements of the original: the stark guitar line, the driving beat, and the iconic vocal phrase, "Reach out and touch faith." These elements are reintroduced gradually, layered with ambient textures and reverb-drenched soundscapes that create a sense of space and distance. The result is a more atmospheric version of Personal Jesus, one that feels less aggressive and more reflective, more prayer than protest. A key feature of the audio remix is the manipulation of pacing. Where the original drives forward with urgency, the Jesus edit allows moments to breathe. Pauses and silences are strategically placed to reflect emotional hesitation, doubt, and contemplation. This slower pacing allows the listener to absorb the lyrics and connect with them on a deeper level. It also mirrors the protagonist's inner journey, hesitant, searching, and ultimately transformative. Vocal fragments are also used to evoke memory and emotion. Echoes of Gayan's voice repeat in the background like distant thoughts or half-remembered prayers. These ghostly layers give the remix a spiritual, almost sacred quality. In contrast, bursts of distortion and static are added at key emotional peaks, reminding the listener of the rawness and imperfection of human experience. The emotional tone throughout the edit is one of yearning, less about salvation and more about reaching. It's a tone of searching rather than finding, of vulnerability rather than certainty. This shift in emotional emphasis redefines the song not as an anthem, but as a confession, a quiet plea for connection in a disconnected world. Ultimately, the Jesus edit reshapes personal Jesus into something simultaneously familiar and new, a meditative audio journey that invites listeners not just to hear the song, but to feel it, deeply and personally. 6. The modern search for a personal savior. In today's world, the concept of a personal savior has evolved far beyond traditional religious boundaries. The phrase once evoked images of divine figures or spiritual leaders, but in the modern age it has taken on broader, more complex meanings. The Jesus edit of Depeche Mode's Personal Jesus taps directly into this shift, exploring what it means to seek solace, truth, and guidance in an era marked by digital distraction, emotional fatigue, and spiritual ambiguity. The modern individual, surrounded by social media, instant communication, and curated online identities, often finds themselves paradoxically more isolated than ever before. In this landscape, the need for a personal savior is no less real, but it manifests in new forms. For some, it may be a therapist, a mentor, or a partner. For others, it could be a belief system, a song, or even a fleeting moment of clarity. The need is the same: someone or something to believe in, to help carry the emotional weight of existence. The Jesus edit explores this theme not through doctrine but through emotion and atmosphere. The song becomes a vessel for that universal longing, to be seen, to be understood, to be saved, even if just momentarily. When the lyrics say, "someone to hear your prayers, someone who's there," it's not necessarily referring to a religious figure. It's speaking to the deep human desire for connection, empathy, and presence, qualities often lost in the noise of modern life. Visually, this is reflected in the journey of the protagonist who moves through a bleak urban environment, encountering moments of kindness and reflection. These encounters are subtle, yet profound, suggesting that salvation in the modern world may not come from above, but from around us and within us. The modern search for a personal savior is no longer limited to places of worship. It happens on late-night walks, through meaningful conversations, in the lyrics of a song that feels like it was written just for you. Depeche Mode's Personal Jesus endures because it captures this tension between faith and doubt, isolation and connection, despair and hope. The Jesus edit reframes that message for today's audience, reminding us that the search continues, and that reaching out is still an act of faith.